about this.
I'm trying to figure out setting up the events in the but I don't know like so for Sam and I I'm for Paul because his kids go to bed and then he has much more focus and more time. But it's a little crazy.
It's a double-edged sword there, bro.
Too, right? You have one kid, right? I
I have
think.
one, yeah, and she's in school, so I mean,
Yeah.
one could say, it's like it reminds me of a story from where I work. We have a London office, and there's a person who is on a team that we were working with that it talked about how we are a New York centric organization. And he wasn't wrong, right? But like all the decisions, all the time details, everything
Everything happens
is
in New
driven out
York.
there,
Yeah. Yeah.
that doesn't always work, right? Depending on, depending on processes, people, et cetera, and whatnot. So that said, it's Paul. Do we really need him? Like, you know, just
I
saying, maybe give others a chance to shine, get a little more air in the room for others to, So I'm just kidding. He's great.
I have a I have a joke for him. I'm just waiting for him to pop up. I kind of bailed on him this weekend, but I have a joke for him that's hilarious. Let me show you. Let's see. If he pops up, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna stop. So the joke goes like this. Do people in England have their websites popping up saying accept biscuits?
uh, they take that shit very seriously over there.
Yeah, very, very seriously. What up, Joe?
Hey
Joe
Joe.
with the bottle. With the... Hi, Joe. Joe is slowly but surely like kind of converting into this Beatles 1980s. I'm staying in the 1960s. I'm fine. I'm pulling out Paul Allen. If you just so we have here in Seattle a thing called Computer Museum. Sam, have you been to this computer museum before in Seattle?
I don't know if he hears you.
I'm gonna go to Microsoft headquarters and smash his computer. He's got a new computer, but
Does
it's
he?
not
That
working.
sounds fancy.
Sam, Sam Shu, ni hao, Shishi.
你好，
Okay, there he is.
You,
Okay.
you even sure that's a dialect that he may speak or may not speak?
Oh yeah, of course. No, I'm casually bad. I'm not exactly your mainstream.
Casually.
Just casually?
I am what people call an HR nightmare.
I Yeah, I don't get along with HR very well. I've been called into the US head of HR for my organization. I've been called into global head of HR for my organization. All around food related issues.
No, Sam is all right. Sam is my man. He's all right. Sam taught me a nice kind of greeting. This is how you say goodbye. Just hello, goodbye, stuff like that. I have a couple of really dear Chinese friends, Kai Lu Hu and Sam Chu. They work really hard. They work with me really, really hard. So anyway, let's see. Paul on the other hand is not here. So I guess we're gonna, the ship will take off without him. That's
God,
what
am I
it
gonna have
is.
to code something?
Yeah.
So so here's the deal, Nick. Last time, just to catch up because you had to drop off. Last time we said, hey, let's go and write some conventions, and let's let these conventions kind of dictate how we're gonna parse more complex tokens, right? And Joe, I know you have a proposal about minimizing the O token type. I want you to hold on to that thought until we, get moving in one direction, and then we'll talk. Okay. So there's this Git O convention, and the convention basically goes and says, I want to be able to know how to parse. There is tokens that require a range of parse, like it has a beginning and it has an end, and there are tokens that are just a separator. It just happens and then it disappears, right? And we want to basically kind of visualize that. Sorry, materialize that, right? We want to take that idea and make it into code. So what Joe was saying last time, he's like, okay, then every single one we made in here we need to basically convert it into an O convention, right? So if you're going in here, you can't just say EQ, this token type is operand, and that's it. We basically want to go and say, actually, we're supposed to say parse type in here, and then the type of that token. So I'm gonna go change that real quick. I'm gonna go to
I like that.
open.
So now you're actually creating a model. You have a model around the domain representation, and you can
Yeah.
use that model to drive, behavior that
Mm-hmm.
centralizes on that model.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this is parse type like this, and then we can go and say, okay, I have a O token type, which is just a type. Okay, so this is, and since this is the O convention, that's going to be the token type. And I typed parse wrong because I am illiterate. That's just what happens. So I prepared the joke for him, and he didn't show up. He always shows up. Let me tell you the joke, guys. Sam and Joe. I was just telling Nick, as soon as Paul comes in, I'll ask him, say, the websites in your country show up accept biscuits. Do you get it? Instead of cookies, because they don't say cookies over there. I even looked it up. Apparently biscuits is a French word. It means double cooked or cooked twice. Like,
Does it?
yeah, here it is. Hi, Paul.
Oh, there he is.
Paul Wardy, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
When you design websites in England, does the pop-up say accept biscuits?
No. In fact, this is a real point of contention for me, and it pisses me off, right? Because the EU cookie directive, which was brought in, that gives you all those stupid pop-ups that says, "Do you accept the cookies?" Right?
Uh-huh.
Was
Uh-huh.
was brought in as a result of politicians making a knee-jerk reaction because they heard on the grapevine somewhere that cookies
Uh-huh.
were a bad thing.
Uh-huh.
But as
Uh-huh.
we all know as professionals, there's only certain types of cookies that are a bad thing when abused.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's happened is this directive has been brought in, and now every fucking site across the whole entirety of bloody Europe has trained users now to load up the homepage and click accept. So you could literally set up a website that has a form on it that says, "Do you allow me to empty your bank account?" Right? No
Mm-hmm.
one's going to read it. They're just going to click accept and move on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, does that constitute some sort of like legal agreement between you and them? No, it doesn't.
Right.
So
It doesn't mean anything, actually.
it
It's
doesn't mean anything. Yeah,
but
exactly.
where does it stop? Like now you're accepting cookies, and then the next thing is, oh, do you wanna allow us to access your location? And then the new thing now, it doesn't stop. Now like every single website has infinite number of pop-ups,
Yeah,
that it just doesn't stop. Oh, we're reading it's dumb. It's really dumb. You know what would be
it's
cool? Go ahead.
it's
Go ahead.
inadvertently teaching users bad habits because we all know the average user doesn't read something unless it's of interest. And if it's just one of those annoying pop-ups, you can
Mm-hmm.
guarantee, like EULAs. Who
Mm-hmm.
reads EULAs? No one
Mm-hmm.
reads them,
Nobody. Nobody.
but we
So
all
Nobody.
there's
accept them.
so there's two things here, right? One is, yes, there absolutely is an overload of like, hey, accept this, right? Read this 45-page document, accept it. There's I forget what it is. It's like nagging overload or whatever, where people just automatically know to dismiss. This isn't specific to GDRP or GP or whatever it is, or
GDPR. Mm-hmm.
GDPR
Yeah,
in Europe. I mean,
yeah.
it's for
The right to
anything,
be
ULAs,
forgotten.
etc. People
Mm-hmm.
just automatically dismiss, right, because of that fatigue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. As I say, you zone out when you're faced with the same monotonous, what you believe is just drone every day. You just, oh yeah, I've seen these 1,000 times over, except.
Right,
We need to
right.
bring back modal windows and give. I'm kidding.
Anyway, look guys, so here's where I am right now. So I'm basically saying we can write this function that can read from a list of conventions to find the right convention that matches the token that we're working with. And if it matches that particular convention, it will say how to parse it, and it will say how to, kind of, determine the type of that convention. So think about this as a rule that you pass in to tell the parser how to operate, right? At some point in time, we want to make this extensible. Do we have any questions about any of that? Are we good on that part?
How far do I have a question? So you had something like a range or end token, which I think you removed.
Oh, yeah, the end token is null if it's single. Like we don't care
So
about it. Mhm.
what I would recommend is there's this be like an abstract and this have a virtual a method like a override like a virtual that needs to be implemented that gets the span. And by span I'm not talking about .NET span. I just mean what you need to do is you be able like even if it's a single character, it's a
Mhm.
span of one, a length one. And
Mhm.
again, not a .NET span. It could be implemented as such, but you always have the concept of start and end, right? And it's like, hey, I'm responsible for this, right? And whether those two numbers are the same
Ah,
on the end, and then you then have an implementation that is specific. Now you can assign a if you want to make it that's not abstract and you assign a delegate that does that. I don't care, right? But the point is that like you should normalize that. Like instead of saying I have one or many, it's always many, but sometimes that number is one, right? That
I
way it's consistent.
see. So okay, so would that be if you say start and end, you could say something like, the end token would be itself. Like it just
No, you would have a delegate that gives you the pair. You get a tuple that would give you the start position, the end position, or like the start, this. Or are you saying that are you saying that the convention is such that like when you start at some letter, you end at some letter?
hmm
If that's the case, like what then that's fine. That's what your convention is going to be.
unless
I
the letter is
There's
escape.
probably scenarios where you're going to need some more specialized knowledge around this, but let's roll with this.
There is actually, and then this is the one I want to do first before anything else, since we have the time from the beginning. The convention that I want to go with also needs to support, not just saying my end token is like you could go in a token and say my beginning is this and my
Mhm.
end is this, but that doesn't satisfy all the conditions because there's always a condition where you want to go and say the beginning is this guy here, and the end is the beginning of the next token.
Yeah.
Like what? Dollar sign select,
Hmm.
$select, and not to go on a tangent here, just so you guys understand, who owns GraphQL, by the way? Does anyone here knows?
I mean, it was originally a Facebook thing. Now it's the community. It's an open. It's a standard,
Right. It's not a standard yet, but it's owned
or
by
it's standardish, right?
yeah. So check this out. I was just playing around with this yesterday to try to do some stuff with a Facebook group that I'm managing. Look
Yeah.
how they select fields, how they look for a particular model. It's OData representation. Look.
Oh wow.
Look
When
at
did they
this.
do that?
The beautiful thing I noticed though with this API Explorer is that it tells you, hey, maybe you want this as well, and it
Oh,
tells you,
I mean, that's been a feature. That's been kind of like a feature built on GraphQL for a long time, right? Like that's been like I have that in my passion project. We have a GraphQL endpoint, and we have a
Mhm,
playground that
mhm.
directly. I can show it to you if you want.
No, no, I believe you. I'm just saying this syntax is OData, right?
Yeah,
That's select syntax, right?
I think that's I think that that's specific for when they publish when you publish. I think that's in the spec or the proposed spec that when you publish it over get, if you
Uh-huh.
change that to post, it'll be a like a JSON with three variables. It'll be query, which would be the GraphQL query, which will be the nested syntax, which I think
Mm-hmm.
we're most used to in
Mm-hmm.
GraphQL. Then you'll have the parameters. I think there's one other one. I forget what it is.
This here is also the kind of extend, its way of writing extend. right?
Yeah.
I didn't know about this. I didn't know that this was a thing, you know. But anyway, I loved the Explorer though. Like I loved the autocomplete in Explorer. Sorry for going on a tangent. Let's go back here. So anyway, so back to this. What I'm trying to say here, okay, your beginning is this. I want to also somehow formulate a convention that says that the end of this token is the beginning of the next or the end of the line, right? So any ideas about how to tackle this problem? This particular problem. Don't derail. Stay with me on this.
So we're
Mm.
assuming that something else is doing the processing and just going to be using this O convention
Yes.
as configuration,
A plug and
basically.
play. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the mishmash between your idea and Paul's idea. So this way we're allowing people to create their own conventions, completely replace all the conventions, and let the tokenization service just be a tokenization service. You know, at the same time we're writing hard coding the conventions in there that, you know, target OData types.
Is this so? Going back to this idea that you have some, maybe what we need is on the convention level. The convention is responsible for saying, "Hey, here's where I am," and you give it like there's you're always going to have like a full body of text that's
Hmm.
sent as part of the query, right?
Yep.
You know that you're at a certain place where you're processing. You're at
Yep.
like character 5, like you're at the fifth, slot,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
You give it to all of your conventions, and
Yep.
maybe it may be a two-phase type thing where your conventions first say, one, can I make sense of any of this given what has come before and where I'm at now? And then two, from the list of things that can be processed, then there's some sort of some sort of prioritization or whatever. You say, okay, you go and try to make an attempt, almost like a, hey, can you try to make a sort of census? Conventions will say yes or no. If they say yes, then they're given the string to go and process it further at that particular point with all the context that has come before. And then they say, okay, here's what we think it is. And then if you have multiple things that say it's right, clearly something is wrong. If you have one thing that says it's right, that's the thing. If you have nothing that says it's right, then it's like, we don't know what this is either. Does that
How
make
about,
Well,
sense?
yeah,
at
yeah.
that point, any unknown becomes its own token.
That's true. An unknown that's that has boundaries with known tokens becomes its own tokens. Yes,
Yeah.
like an unknown that's prefixed or postfixed with a known tokens become its own token. I agree. No problem there. Here's an idea that I have around this. We can go here in this O convention and we can go and say, here's a new model called O convention limit. Okay, and what this guy can do, just entertain the idea, see if I'm going somewhere well. So here is public, and then here is this guy takes in a string of a token and takes a boolean called inclusive. Okay, so if you go back to the convention here, you could go and say, and instead of this will be an O convention limit array. And what this guy can say is that limits like this, and we can go back into this convention service and say, oh, my limits in here is an array, potential array of conventions. Here's the things that can end this token, multiple things that can end this token. In this case, I can go and say, well, if it's $, then my end token here would be an equal sign and an inclusive would be false. That's your rule. And I can add as many as I want.
So the consumer of this doesn't really actually need to know the characters. It just needs to know if this convention can start with the current character. If we can add the current character to the existing convention, it's somewhere in the middle, or is this the ending character of the convention? Because we're still processing by character. And since this convention's not doing processing at all, we just need to know whether the character that we're trying to process is either the start, the middle, or the end of the current convention. And that
Well,
would eliminate a lot of this extra property stuff.
well, wouldn't your convention needs to tell you where to start and how to proceed and where to end? That would be the rules of a convention, right?
Yeah, but you're asking the convention. It's not telling you. Like you have a character already. We're processing through a string. We have this character. Let's
Yeah.
ask the conventions, can you start with this? If you can, grab the first one that matches.
So you're talking about this one, right? This one here,
Yep.
right? So how is the convention is supposed to know that this is the right convention for the current token that is being parsed if we don't attach something like this to it?
Well, you'd have a method that says can start with, and then you pass it a character. It's going to return true or false.
Or you could just pass the token to the list and the list will tell you here it is. And then go
Yes,
ahead.
but now you're relying on some other processing to determine the interpretation of that character. Is it uppercase, lowercase, things like that? Let the convention deal with it.
Oh, so you're saying the convention needs to also
The convention
describe.
controls it. You're using it. You're basically handing off the determination of any character while we're processing the string to whatever current convention you're attempting to process.
What would your ideal convention say or look like?
Convention, a method that says can start with, that takes a parameter of character and returns a bool.
That's a
Once you
factory of conventions, right? That you're talking about. It's a method. If you're passing in a method, then it's executing an action, right?
Yeah, and you're getting a result whether you can proceed with that convention or not.
Take the screen and show me what that looks like.
All right, let me close.
This is why I like code and draw IO. You know,
Yeah.
show me what you have, and if it doesn't work, I'll laugh at you for a little bit, and then we'll go back to
It's
my
okay.
ID.
Let me see if I have any changes. Share.
Nick, do you know what song stuck in my head?
What?
You know that song, It's Like Rain on Your Wedding Day?
Yeah.
Free ride when you already
Ironic
pay?
by
Yep,
Alanis Morissette.
yep. Why? Why this morning? I don't get it. Joe, where's your
Are
screen? Do
you
you
in
not?
Seattle? Maybe that's why. Rain.
That's why. It's like rain on your wedding day.
VS
Call.
crashed on me.
That's a nice background.
I love this background. Send me that background, son. Does it work on a 49 incher?
This is a
with the
43
flex,
inch.
like really, like just
Yeah, this is 43, so it should be fine.
43 inch?
Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
What's the next one?
Oh, this is just Windows stuff? That looks
Yeah.
like Washington State. No, this is San Francisco. The previous one looks like Washington State
It may have been.
or upstate New York. That works too. All right. Go ahead, sir. Show me your convention and then let's have a little. You're either gonna impress me or you're gonna piss me. So let's see.
Well, it happens.
yeah.
All right, undoing. Cool. So,
Okay, let's go. Joe's files are funny looking. Look at the icon. It's very small. Look.
oh, that's because I blew up the text. Everything else is normal.
Oh, I see what you did. In Visual Studio itself, you kind of okay, got it. Yep. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go.
Let's add it.
Okay.
Everything's going
Don't worry
smoothly.
about the cleanliness of the code. Just show me your idea. Just I want to understand what you're trying to do, and then we'll talk.
All right, so
You can't have spaces
Well, we know that. It'll fix itself when I get to it.
Okay. Okay, character.
Stupid cap locks.
Are you sure you want character? Because EQ is not one character.
We're processing a string character by character.
Okay, let's go.
Unless you want to do look ahead, so like you're gonna see if like from the beginning of the screen till or from the beginning of the string till the length of whatever that convention works, if that matches, you're doing a lot more processing just to get that done.
Why don't you make it a string and go and say, hey, take this character. Does it match anything? No. Go back to and find the convention with the 2 characters, with the 3 characters, with the 4 characters. I'll shut up. You do your thing.
Yeah, I mean you could do first or default, and it'll just find the one that gets it.
Okay, let's go. Zoom in. Roll the wheel a little on the screen, please, Joe.
Yeah, this still doesn't work for me. I gotta figure that out.
Control Shift dot, I think. Period. Yep. Okay.
Now it's abstract. Okay, we'll just continue going down this route.
Okay. So your conventions are not data carriers anymore. You're making them operational models.
Yeah, but without exposing a lot of properties that don't really make sense to all the other potential conventions, you're asking it basically three questions. Can you start with what I'm trying to start with? Can I add what I currently have to you? And are you done? Like, is this convention done? Like, is what I got complete enough?
Okay.
So, I don't know, done for now. And then for here, you would just do
Okay.
can't have an S there.
That would be our tokenization service, right?
Yeah, it's just a mock for now.
Okay.
This doesn't matter. Equals foo, comma, bar.
Okay.
So basically, you got your for each.
What if you end up with 2 that start with the same letter? 2 conventions that start with the same letter.
It's coming in an array, so you're going to process them sequentially. So you're going to get the first one, just like a pipeline.
Okay. I don't even know if we have tokens, but it's a possibility. But yeah.
Well, a word and a string literal, without knowledge of a quote, would do the same thing.
Right.
An OData greater than and an OData greater than or equal to both
Oh,
start
that's
with
right.
a G.
That's right. That's right. GT and GE. That's right.
This is why when I was talking about it before, I said that tokenization should come first and then applying conventions should come after you'd apply your conventions to your token array.
So
Think of these more like Lexer conventions.
Okay, just let them play. I want people to
Yeah.
kind of do their thing. What's wrong, Paul? You sound sad. What happened? Did you guys join the European Union again? I got him. Look at that. I got him to smile. What happened? What's going on?
Busy week.
Just a busy week. Okay.
A lot of stress.
Yeah. Do I have nullable turned on? Oh, it's just signing never used. Okay.
You should.
So now that we have one that starts with, we can then build our thing.
Okay.
I'm running out of screen space, so I'll just scroll up.
So your idea of convention, but then you have to, eventually you're gonna have to, um, see, so you're making your convention also the processor at the same
Well,
time.
no, it just agrees to work with or not work with. That's all it's doing. It's not actually doing the aggregation of characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's just saying if this character works in this convention or not.
Okay, now let me ask you this question then. You know, if you do it this way, does that mean at some point in time while you're parsing, you're gonna end up with like 3 conventions and they keep getting less and less until you reach the end of the parsing process?
No, because you could still have a convention that you used originally that's you're going to use at the end of your parsing process. So the list of conventions is just the ones that you're able to do. It's just anytime you get to the point where you're not currently working with a convention, you have to go back and get a new convention.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we don't have a convention, we assume it's unknown. So we're just going to add the
I think
thing.
Sam's
to the
raising
thing.
his hand,
Go
although I
ahead, Sam.
can't see. Like,
Go ahead, Sam. You're on mute though. Go ahead.
Yeah. So from Joe's proposal, what I'm thinking is it seems we can move the method or interface into the I tokenized service. So if
That's what
we
I'm
can do
thinking.
that, it seems it's part of the I tokenized service.
Right.
So by default, we have our own tokenized service implementation for I
Right.
service interface.
Right.
I can start from scratch, start from the interface
Mm-hmm.
to implement their own tokenized service. To implement the interface,
Yeah.
can start with done or is complete, something like this, or they can override the default implementation for I tokenized
And do
service.
their own. Yeah.
For example, they want to keep the is start character, or they
Mm-hmm.
can override the is done is
Mm-hmm.
complete method by default. That's my thought. Because we have the interface, we don't need the. It seems we can merge the thought or idea convention into the tokenized service,
Yep.
because it's one of the customer can start from the interface to finish the tokenized. Okay.
I kind of lean more towards, yeah, keeping your conventions like a data carrier. But let's just see what it looks like, Sam. I'm not in disagreement.
Spelling.
Yeah.
All right. So can
I
append.
know.
Yep. You're gonna iterate and then you're gonna keep going through these rules until
Builder. I haven't been using it long enough to remember my variable names. And then
Hmm. What do you think about that, Paul? Model path to processing or processing within the convention?
My thinking was that getting as far as applying Conventions was first establishing your parameters, so breaking up your query string. So that was stage 1. Stage 2 was tokenization. Stage 3 was then analyzing the token stream with conventions to see if we could optimize or improve it.
Right.
But what I think Joe's doing is he's trying to do stages 1, 2, and 3 all as part of tokenization, because he's saying, hey, we're going to feed the original string in and we're going to end up with a convention applied token set.
Technically, this is just lexing until we have a list of string right now. There's no types applied. Part 2, you go through that list of things that you've now built up, and then you can say it's a word or a string literal or a GUID or an int. You can put that all off now.
This sounds like the folks that do that say the model contains its own processing. So they combine both data and processing at the same time. What do you got about this, Nick?
Sorry, I apologize. I was looking at another combo. No, I mean this is a variation of what I proposed before, right? Like we were saying, you're basically part of the convention is saying not just. I don't think that we can just say through scalar values alone that this is what can be, this is enough to say here's a particular token. It has to have logic behind it, and Joe's doing a variation of that. I'm more than happy with this.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other option would be the string builder. You can actually bring it into your convention, and then it can do forward or back lookup on itself to see if it needs to do something else. Maybe one of these conventions has some form of interpolation or almost like a regex style where, like, if it contains a pattern that's repeated 3 times, then the convention's complete. We don't know what it's going to do.
I'm gonna take a minute just to kind of feel it. And then
Yeah,
I'll
this
say-
is very, very crude right now.
No, it's all right. I see what you're trying to say, though.
Yeah, let me minus out of here so I can fit it on one screen for you. There.
So the only thing that I have against this is that the rules. Well, well, Paul, he's still feeding it the rules. He's still feeding it conventions, right?
Yeah, so they could be Lexer conventions, if you want to use that term. As soon as we talk about token conventions, then we got to start talking about type. What type of token is this?
So Sam, to your point, what is the other thing class that Joe's created would be the tokenization service, right, Joe? Or would that be
Or some part within it, something we could replace within the tokenization service. So I would say for tokenization, you'd probably want a set of lexing conventions, maybe a set of tokenization or parsing conventions, and then you should be done after that. After when those two things, like the lexing and the parsing, happen, you get your tokens out there. That's kind of the standard with lexing and parsing. We just haven't really discussed or tried to model this after that, just because we didn't want it to influence us.
So if the convention is null, then things add c dot to string.
Yeah, if you want me to make some better variable names just so it makes it easier while we're discussing it, we can.
No, you're fine. I see what you're trying to say. What do you think, Sam?
So Joe said we have a Lexor convention and the token convention.
Mm-hmm.
I'm confused about the two parts. So we have Lexor. So Lexor will output a token,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the same as the tokenized service right now in our project. The tokenized service the lecturer or is a combination of the lecturer and the parser?
I would say it's a combination of both.
Combination of
see,
both. Okay.
see that's what we were trying not to do, Joe. We don't want two responsibilities in the same thing.
But you have them whether you want them or not.
No, you
The
don't.
world's already broken that down into 2 steps.
What Paul was saying a couple of sessions ago, just hear me out. This is good. What Paul was saying a couple of sessions ago, he was saying, I don't want to do two things in one service. If the tokenization service is just doing tokenization, let it do tokenization. I feel like, and maybe I'm misunderstanding. Please don't feel that I want you to fully explain this, because what I'm seeing here is that I see you consuming the query and consuming conventions and executing processing all in the same spot. But this is not the tokenization service. It's a part inside the tokenization service. It seems a bit complicated to me. I'm a little stupid. I like simplified things. What do you think? You know what we're trying to say? Like, if I'm assuming you will allow these conventions to be injected into the tokenization service, right? Right, Joe? Yes. Okay. So we have that one, Paul. Like, he can inject the rules into the service from the outside. But also, how are you going to feed the query to this other thing?
What do you mean by that?
Like, you hard coded the query there, right? Is this
Oh, here, let me just do this real quick. Token service 2.
By the way, I would strongly recommend that you take an approach for that ASP.NET Core does. Like, you have something context, so it'd be like, tokenization context. You have query, and that thing just builds as it gets passed along, right?
Mhm.
Also makes it so your prioritization for everything along this process becomes super easy.
We could do that, Nick. I just want to make sure that that this thing is simple. I need to make this simple, like really simple. So let me just see what Joe is going with here. Okay, so the query gets passed in, and you're getting these conventions from the injected from the on the tokenization service layer. What do you think about that, Sam?
I'm good for that.
To elaborate on Nick's discussion, where you typically would have a context, I would pull in the conventions, whether we have two separate sets of conventions or one set of conventions, and feed those into an inner type for tokenization context or something. And that would actually remove string builder. That would remove these two types and put them inside of that context. So it would be encapsulated. They wouldn't be messing up the logic here. It would just be something that you don't need to worry about in this view of the code, because it's being handled by the context.
Yeah.
So rather than having a read-only thing here, you would have
Yeah, I see what you're doing. Hold on. Go back to that. Go back to the conventions real quick, please, Joe. I just want to see. So you're taking in a query and you're basically going and saying, here's my tokens. Can you run this implementation for one of the failing tests?
yeah, we currently care about types, so I would just have to modify it just to deal with types. So they would be lexing and parsing rather than just lexing.
Oh, see, that's
So, and this is where I said, hey, why don't we trim down our types? Because You need one or more, or one convention for one or more token types, right?
If you deal with one type, it's like you deal with 1,000 type. Now it's there, right?
Yeah.
And you have to deal with it. So making it less is not going to help because you still have to program against it.
Yeah, but you can get started quicker by making a white space convention and let's say a word convention, and then you don't have to worry about operand or string literal because it's either a white space or a word. And then you can add
Dude,
the other.
you're going back to non-OData specific tokenization then. When you say, I'm sorry, go ahead, Sam. Go ahead. Go ahead, Sam.
Just one point for the implementation. So if we have the start character, so John, you have the can start with method. Take a character to identify it can start. It's a new token. So if the character is within the value, so because you take the character from the query one by one.
Mm-hmm.
So every character will go into the can start with.
Yes. Every single character.
No,
What?
no. You only need to do can start with if you're not currently processing with a convention. So the convention that we're going to continue processing the string with is going to be null to start with. The no coalesce equals operator can start with, so it's only going to run this if it's null.
Yeah, but wait, I think what Sam's saying, Joe, I know what you're getting at. You need to have an inner loop that continues to process the remaining characters. You have to skip over. But you do that, right, with the call.
Yeah. So either if the convention's null, we just assume the character is something we don't know about, so we just want to tokenize it. It's going to be its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
If convention isn't null, so we either determine if we can append or not. If we can't append anymore, we're done. We ship that off in our tokens list, and we continue on with the next one.
But hold on. You know, you're iterating over the characters. If you're iterating over GT, right? Or let's say GET, and you're going and saying, you know, I'm iterating over every character. This is probably just me trying to understand, you know, the first time you iterate, you found the first character in a token, which is the G, right? So your convention, first or default, your convention here is not null.
Correct.
Yeah.
Because you found one that starts with a G.
So if it's not null, then you go and say, can this current convention append this character? Yeah, because that's the first character in this convention. Great.
Yep.
Append that. That's the G. And then you go to the E, and then you're iterating and you're going and saying, do you have a convention here that can start with E? Right? You will get a convention.
Your conventions are already not null, so it's going to skip over that.
So it's going to depend on what the order of the conventions are as they're added. Is that something that you want to happen?
See, I don't want that. But
we
wait.
do it with middlewares. We do it with link. We're constantly processing things at a certain order. So why is it different here?
So just follow along with me on this one. Let's go. Let me just stay here. So if you scroll down, okay, stay here. So in here, you're basically, if I say G, it will say, oh, that convention is not null, can append, yes. Okay, so far so good, right? Now hear me out. And then convention can't end with G. No, the answer is no, move on. The next character will be E, right? It will go and say, is there a convention that can start with E? The answer will be yes, because there's EQ convention. There's GE and there's EQ. And E is the start of another convention, right? So now this guy is going to come back as not null, right? So now if you go to the else statement, you know, you'll go and say, that does this convention can append can append with E, the answer will also be yes. You will end up with GE in there. What are you doing? Okay.
Oh, I found a bug because you were talking.
Okay.
So,
So your next step it will be see the convention is changing, brother. Every time you're iterating, the convention is changing on you, and I think relying on the
no,
orders.
it's not. It only changes if there's not currently a convention that we got on a previous iteration.
I think the problem that you're assuming is that you will be able to is that the first convention that's picked, and I get where you're coming from, Joe, with Millwood.
Yeah.
But like I get what Hassan's saying. I think we have to say, hey, you know what? We could have multiple conventions that could apply at a particular point in time,
Yeah.
and we have to account for that. And it should, however, at some point we should be able to say that one convention
Yep.
fully satisfies
Yep.
up to
Yep.
a certain point. Take that
You'll-
not
yep.
process, but like, and then start,
Yep.
and then tell the other ones, hey, you're no longer needed, and we're going to restart the process.
Yep. You'll
Right,
start.
from the whole list of conventions.
Yep.
So we start with all of them. We say, hey, maybe 3 apply here. Which is,
Yep.
this is what I said before.
Yep.
This is 3 apply here, and then we go through until we get to the first one that says I can process everything from point A to point B. Then it says, okay, ship it off, and then we
Yep.
restart the process there. But then it will continuously kind of whittle down to a single convention that that could potentially return a result, or it will whittle down to no conventions that can't return any result and not be known, or it will return multiple conventions which could completely process that result up to that point, in which case we have to say this is indeterminate, right?
Yep. Yep. Joe, do you know what does this? Type S. Just go to a new line and just type S. Here's all your convention, and then type T. Here's the conventions that match, and then type R. Here's all the conventions that match, and then ing, and then it will just matches. So
Okay, I gotcha.
see, that's what Nick is trying to say. I think that's what the Elixir and Visual Studio is doing.
So we can still do this. You just need to make it so that you have a subset of the full list of conventions that's applicable at any one time. Each of them has their own buffer that they're building into, or maybe not. You may be able to store.
He's gonna
one
have to do a
buffer.
recursive function that keeps
Doesn't have to be
iterating,
recursive.
and it
Well,
terminates.
No,
Well,
it's going to have to be recursive. I could add another string builder and basically convert can start with to a string. And basically if rather, okay. So I could do a where and just
Okay.
keep processing and skipping until we only have one convention.
But you're still saying starts with, brother. That's the problem. You're gonna pick up conventions along the way, even if you're halfway through processing. That's my opposition to this.
Yeah.
We pissed him off.
No, you didn't piss me off. I'm trying to think about it. So we'll call this one thing 2. So I don't know. Amount equals that.
I hate this magical thing that you have in your ID that tells you the type. It's
I'm
dumb.
sorry.
What is that?
There, I fixed it for you.
There you go.
Stop using var.
I only use var if the right side is clear or the right side is unknown. That's the only way I use var. Other than that, I always use the type. That's what
Yeah, I
it is.
should be doing
I
that.
mean, are you using target type new? If you're using,
If I don't use the new open close parentheses. I think that's an abomination.
so
I
you
don't
do
like-
type variable equals new type.
No, var variable equal new type.
Oh yeah, as long as you got it embedded somewhere in there. I mean, honestly, I'm way more loose with it now. I think I almost everything.
You
I
used
do
to
is
fight the
called-
wars. You used to go.
Unless, I used to be all into. I'm like, oh, okay. Now I'm like, honestly, after I did TypeScript for a year, 2 years, I'm like, var the shit out of everything. Like,
JavaScript turned you into a Democrat.
TypeScript did, not even JavaScript. The more structure that was put on me, the more liberal I became. Seriously, TypeScript is amazing. Once you kind of learn to just let the types flow, you just fucking chef's kiss. Seriously, Anders like really
Okay.
did something, and then Daniel, whoever the current steward of that program, they're doing fantastic work.
Oh, Halsberg? Yeah.
Halsberg started, but then Daniel something, bald head guy, is the guy who currently does the blog posts around the TypeScript releases. Like they're doing great work over there.
Okay. All right. So Joe, here's a suggestion because we're almost at time.
Yeah.
I'll do a prototype. I'll do a POC by the next session.
Yep.
You do a POC by the next session. It needs to work though. I don't care. I don't care if it's pretty, but it needs to work.
It's got to pass the test.
It needs to pass the test. Right? I'm still feeling a little bit strongly for conventions as just models, not functions. And it seems that the team is split.
Why can't your model have a function? Your
Because
function is
I'll tell you,
is data.
I'll tell you, because models to me are three types. There is data carrier models, they're anemic models, or operational models like the services that we build, or configuration models. They don't really have any services, they don't do anything, they just boot up your system, like your program CS kind of.
I was messing with you, but unless for what we're trying to do, I think unless you're going to have an exceptionally detailed model around exactly the logic that you want to interpret, you're probably going to have to accept some kind of functional pieces as part of that model.
So you're saying it's a software engineering problem? Okay.
No, I mean, like, listen, if you want to be anal retentive and be like, hey, I'm going to kind of put all the pieces of a general purpose language into my model so I can cover every logic scenario that I need, like, hey, sure, cool.
Think about how OData itself works. In the URL, you go and say filter equals blah, blah, blah. So you're passing in a model, and then the OData engine executes that model. It's exactly the same idea. It's carrying data, and then that data gets executed. It's like putting your cassette into the Walkman. The cassette itself cannot play itself. You have to put it into the Walkman to make it work. You know what I mean? That's the difference between an operational model, that's the Walkman, versus a data carrier model, that's the cassette. You're a little bit on the younger side, you know, Casper, so I'm thinking I haven't carbon dated you. Just by the looks, I'm thinking 25.
Yeah, something like that. I just got my first job. This is my first job, my first position.
All right, guys, I'll try to come up with something POC. Feel free to come up with yours as well. Just come up with a branch out of this that, you know, applies conventions and makes the test pass. Right now it's just Joe and I, you know, but feel free to kind of create your own branch and let's just showcase and see which one we could mold some of them together. I'm the only Joe, the only thing that I have for this is that you have functions in the model to determine direction of processing. You know, I feel like you're doing two things at the same time, but I could be wrong. This is why we're here, right? So let's connect on Wednesday and see how that looks like. Cool? Yes?
Will
Oh,
do.
you guys are checked out today. You know, you're all looking at your emails and your ICMs and what is it, man? Sam is like thumbs down. I don't like this session. What are you saying, Sam? Sam, do you want to come up with your own POC as well? Okay. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later.
Have a
Thanks
great
so
day,
much.
everyone.
Take care. Bye.